Welcome to Our World Plainly Seen, insights and commentary on the world around us with Dr. Frank Cowden.
Good morning. This morning I want to take a quick look at the nature of good and evil, both in myself and in the society at large. I think honest people, every last one, will acknowledge that there is a side of myself that is attracted or drawn toward evil, or at least succumbs to behavior that can be described as evil, or at least undesirable, or perhaps shameful. I do things of which I'm ashamed. I don't want people to know of it, or I find that I have to do something to correct it. And so the first thing I want to look at or ask is, what is the nature of that which pulls me toward what results in evil or shameful behavior? This happens to me all the time. It happens every single day. There's a constant barrage, either from outside of myself or from within, that is constantly encouraging me to move toward or take actions that could be called evil or dystopic or hostile or greedy, various of the negatively described behaviors or states of being. And yet there that is every day, either from without or from within or both. So I believe one of the first things to study, or one of the first things to try to get our minds around, is what exactly is the nature of that which pulls me toward behavior that eventually I find is evil, or even out front I know I would rather not be involved in or rather not commit. What is the nature of that which is constantly there pulling me toward it? The first question is, in that force, in that constant presence, is it merely random or is it intentional? Does it have a design for me? Does it pursue me with intelligence or purpose or design? This is extremely important for anybody who's trying to live a good life, or who recognizes one's life as comprised of decision-making and the pursuit of self-improvement in some fashion or another. Even if the full range of one's interest to improve oneself is nothing more than physical, entirely superficial, has to do with one's hair or one's looks, or you can get a little better toward bodily improvement, athletic improvement, all the way to people that seek to attain an enduring state of virtue. Regardless of where we focus ourselves, there is still, even in the most mundane or most superficial pursuits of self-improvement, there is still that side that fits the description of being against our higher mind. So, for example, if all I wanted to do was be beautiful, there are plenty of temptations or plenty of actions. There's plenty of things I can do that are directly hostile to the quote-unquote good I want to do, namely be a good-looking person. So I can eat things that are bad for my skin, bad for my hair, make me fat, and there is a constant temptation to violate the regimen which is needed to make myself physically beautiful. Identically, for those with more enduring or long-lasting, or you might say more internal or deeper versions of self-pursuit, pursuing goodness or intellectual prowess or intelligence or musical ability, or trying to leave something enduring behind for the sake of others, not just for my own good looks or whatever. Naturally, we discover that the identical same patterns obtain, just like a quart of ice cream at 11 p.m. at night is bad for the bodybuilder or bad for the would-be fashion model. Similarly, there's behavior that impacts progress towards spiritual attainment and beauty and capacity. So when we look at the ubiquity or the ever-presence or constant presence of that which is drawing us toward behaviors that are bad for what we would prefer to be, bad for the good we try to pursue, is it random? Is it simply random? It's just there? Or does it have intention or even personification? Is it intelligent? One thing for sure, if we take a close look at evil, we can tell that it's orderly, that it seems to have principles by which it operates. That I think, again, an honest person will note. So, for example, if I begin down the road of engaging in consistently problematic, harmful, you call evil, self-detrimental, and harmful to other behavior, one thing about that is that it leads to more of the same. So it is orderly. I can't just simply do some evil or shameful or disgusting thing every single day of my life, and it just happens then and has no impact on its self-development. All evil acts lead to greater evil acts. That a careful study of bad behavior clearly shows that. So at least it's orderly, that much we know. The next big question is it intentional? Is it something against which we do battle that requires strategy, intelligence? Is it an actual battle against something that has different designs for us than we have for ourselves? This is a very big question. Conversely, for the side of us that seeks to be good or wants to be good or wants to improve or wants to keep ourselves in shape or looking good or being good or being humane or being sacrificial or helping those in need, going to countries where hunger obtains or where natural calamity has struck, that side of ourselves that seeks goodness and wants to be good, what is the nature of that? Where does that come from? What are its origins? This too is another thing that needs careful study, because no matter who or what we are, whether we're a mafia assassin, whether we're a heroin addict barely staying alive day to day, or whether we are on the verge of curing cancer or solving the pollution of the oceans, regardless of if we're good or bad or doing well or doing poorly, every one of us goes through life in the exact same day by day tug of war toward that side of ourselves which wants to improve, wants to be better, wants to stop the bad that we do, if we recognize it, and a side of ourselves which is easily drawn toward a pull toward things that are self-harmful, harmful to others, and detrimental. This is what it means to be human. It happens to the best of us. It happens to the worst of us. It happens to the worst of us on our best days and the best of us on our worst days. It's something that needs careful attention and consideration. So all I'm saying is make a study of the fact that we are drawn toward behavior and succumb to behavior now and then, hopefully less and less, of which that can be described in horrific ways that we're ashamed of, that we wish we never did. We're constantly being drawn toward that, and occasionally we fail to resist it. What is that? Is it intelligent? Is it purposeful? Is it personified even? Is it an entity against which we strive? It's clearly not random insofar as it has clear, recognizable operative principles. The more evil we do, the more evil we will do. It follows certain rules, energetic rules at least. Similarly, the good side. Where is it? Where does it come from? Why is it in there? Why is it constantly doing battle? Why does it resist? Why does it feel better when we have helped others, done good, left a record that is valuable for others? Where is that from? That we recognize as not random. That we recognize as intentional because it requires our own intention to pursue it, and it requires the constant revitalization of that attention. So this is something I highly recommend, or should be obvious, or I think anybody can recognize, should be carefully studied. It makes no sense to constantly sit between forces that are with us throughout every single day and not make any effort to understand their nature, where they're from, how they operate, and especially if they're related to intentional entities or have intention themselves. And so with that then, I want to move toward the expansion of that into social manifestation. So, in society, are there the expansion or expression of this thing known as evil or temptation or allure or attraction toward that which is harmful and shameful? Are there groups of people who are basically bad? Are there groups of people who are basically bad? And are there groups of people who are basically good? Now, people are people. So even if we did conclude or came to the decision that there are groups of people who are basically bad, they'll always be involved in good as personal entities, even if they're misguided or the good they seek yields harm on a social level. And here's the question I want to lead to. If it comes to be evident that there are groups of people who are basically bad, what should be our relationship to such people? Because above all, they're people just like you and me. How did they get to be a social unit or a social entity or function in society or participate in an agenda that is harmful, that does harm, that hurts people, and that is hurtful to themselves as well? But how do people form groupings that can be recognized or described as bad in nature? The next thing to know is, I guess everybody imagines themselves to be on the good side. I think that's human nature. But so if we see a group that, according to our best understanding, seems to be a group that is basically bad, that causes harm or evil and behaves in a shameful fashion, how do we relate to such a group? What would be our purpose? What would be our desire? What can we do vis-a-vis the existence of such a group? What I want to recommend, and this is the conclusion of this podcast, is the only way we can understand and start to get a reliable and constant way of behaving toward individuals and groups whom we find to be bad in nature, doing harmful things, is to go back to the self and look at that same battle within the self. The social battle is nothing other than the self battle writ large. So say there are people who can be described as basically bad in what they do. How do I, as a member of society, relate to such an entity, grouping, or group of individuals? The answer is, I already know. I already know because I live through this every day inside of myself. There is a side of myself which I recognize as basically bad. How do I treat that? The main thing we want is for that which is basically bad to not succeed in doing bad things. I don't care how many times I'm tempted. The main thing I care about myself is that I don't do anything bad, evil, harmful. I just want to make sure I don't do anything. And similarly, it's utterly not my business how anybody thinks, what they struggle with, what they believe. The only thing I'm concerned about on the social level is that they don't do bad things, that they don't do things which result in harm to themselves and harm to others. It's the actions that are the main thing that's focused both inside of myself and similarly at a social level. So if I saw an individual or representative or group of people who their behavior results in harm to our society or our nation, how do I treat them? I have only one interest in relating to people whom I feel do harm. That interest is that they stop doing harm. Whatever I need to do to help these people stop doing harm, this is my goal and purpose. Identically, as it is inside of myself. My only interest is to make sure I stop doing harm. I stop doing things that are disgraceful and shameful. So, do I kill myself? Is that the solution to me not doing harm anymore? I absolutely do not. I try to understand the nature of how I pick good. I try to understand the nature of how I resist leaving a bad record of bad behavior. I work with myself. The question on how do I relate to individuals or groups whom I believe to be effecting harm, just as it is an extension of the whole good and evil in society is an extension of myself. The treatment of good and evil in society must similarly be an extension of myself. Study how I work to make myself an entity that does not cause harm. And with that, expand it out into the identical same behavior with individuals and groups who I have the same desire and intention. I want it to know how to stop doing harm and how to intensify and increase doing good. How do I do that in myself? That's how I treat my fellow human being. On the good side, on the bad side, those that agree with me, those that disagree with me. What do I do inside? That's what I do socially. Thanks for listening. Talk to you again soon.